everyone, it's Steven from Tostemac here, and this time I brought my mom to the video.
Hi everybody!
Although I kind of wish that she was here under better circumstances, because a little more than a week ago I came across an article from the Autism Self Advocacy Network.
ASAN.
Right. And when I read this, I showed it to Mom, and we were both really shocked at what has happened. Yeah, disturbed at what has happened. I'll read the full article to you guys, and if you want to check it out yourselves, click the link in the description down below and it'll take you right to the article. So, ASAN has ended partnership with Sesame Street. This article was published on August 5th, 2019. The Autism Self Advocacy Network condemns Sesame Street's decision to further stigma against autistic children and adults in their new public service announcements. For several years, ASAN consulted with Sesame Street on their See Amazing project and the development of their autistic character, Julia. Until this summer, the content Sesame Street produced showed parents that their autistic children could live great lives and taught autistic and neurotypical children ways to become friends. Through this approach, See Amazing successfully encouraged the inclusion of autistic children in their communities and had a widespread positive impact. Sesame Street has now decided to undo that progress. Its latest PSAs featuring Julia promote Autism Speaks' Screen for Autism initiative and their resource for parents of newly diagnosed autistic children, the 100-Day Kit. Like much of Autism Speaks' recent advertising, these PSAs use a language of acceptance and understanding to push resources that further stigma and treat autistic people as burdens on our families. The 100-Day Kit encourages parents to blame family difficulties on their autistic child. Like in the paraphrase, when you find yourself arguing with your spouse, be careful not to get mad at each other when it really is the autism that has you upset and angry. And to view autism as a terrible disease from which their child can get better. It recommends compliance-based therapies and pseudoscientific autism diets, but fails to educate families about communication supports. It even instructs parents to go through the 5 stages of grief after learning that their child is autistic, that they would if the child died. We discussed with Sesame Street repeatedly and in great detail what this decision would mean for the autistic community. We explained to them how these ideas harm autistic children and our families and reinforce societal prejudice against autistic people. Our contacts acknowledged that the Autism Speaks resources were harmful and portrayed autistic children in a negative light, yet they were unwilling to reverse course in their plans to promote them. As a result, we have formally ended our partnership with Sesame Street. Too often, parents of autistic children are bombarded with terrifying messages. They are told that their autistic child will destroy their marriage and their non-disabled children's lives. They are told that their child's happiness and their own depends on the child getting better by hiding their autistic traits, and to work towards this goal above all else. They are told to grieve for the hypothetical non-disabled child they had imagined, rather than to love and connect to the autistic child in front of them. These messages hurt autistic people, scare our families, and encourage our community to fear and exclude us. Autism Speaks has played a central role in developing them. The See Amazing initiative was groundbreaking because it offered an alternative to these stories. It lets families know that their autistic children are amazing, can live happy lives, and are deserving of love. Now Sesame Street has decided to let See Amazing become just another vehicle for Autism Speaks to spread the same old toxic ideas. Decision makers at Sesame Street understand the position they are in. For 50 years, Sesame Street has created content with the explicit goal of impacting the real lives of children and families. It is too late to pretend that Sesame Street can amplify harmful messages without causing them. We call on Sesame Street to recognize the damage they are doing, end their partnership with Autism Speaks, and commit to producing and promoting only content which increases the inclusion, acceptance, and well-being of autistic children. So, Mom, when you read this article, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, actually, I had several thoughts. And if you let me take a look at this, because, you know, those of you that know me know that I tear through things. And, you know, my children grew up on Sesame Street. My youngest sister grew up on Sesame Street. So I have a genuine affection for Sesame Street, what it was built for, what it was developed for, and what it actually did involve.
Well, yeah, I mean, they created very memorable characters, and not just Julia, but other ones like Elmo, the Cookie Monster. Like, I grew up on that stuff. This was a precious childhood memory to me.
And the thing is, a lot of these Sesame Street characters, if you recall, Stephen, they taught you about diversity. They taught you about how do you live with that grumpy old man.
Like the Grouch.
The Grouch. Or how do you deal with that individual who's overweight and can't stop eating cookies and cakes and ice cream?
The Cookie Monster.
The Cookie Monster. See, so Sesame Street's characters have actually been teaching our children how to get along with people that are different with you. What about the person in school? You're all at this height, and then, Stephen, you were up here.
Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration.
Big Bird.
Right.
But it taught you that different people are okay and they're worth getting to know. So when they introduced the character of Julia, I was absolutely tickled. The thing is, and I am going to pick on a couple of things from this article, because some of the things that were said in here, when my sons were diagnosed some 20 some odd years ago, I did hear these things, and they were very, very hurtful. They were very, very destructive. But I was lucky. I was lucky because my sister was going through it. My dad was able to support me with this. And there were other family members that were able to say, you know what, that's just not stuff. That's true. So, you know, let's take a look at some of what this screen is saying. Okay, so we're saying that this 100-day kit says that to blame the family difficulties on their autistic child. You know, as a parent, when Stephen was born, I knew he was different. I'd never 1 minute felt like he was a burden to me. He was a different child than my first child. He was a high-maintenance child, I'll give you that. But you know what? I loved him all that much more. He was never a burden. He was a wonderful addition to our family. I've got photographs of him from when he was little that any other neurotypical wouldn't do because they didn't have those characteristics. Julia in Sesame Street, yes, she had her quirks, but she had some very wonderful characteristics that Sesame Street brought out. And now that's going to be shunned away. Now, it says that about don't be angry at your spouse, be mad at the autism. How can you be mad at a developmental disorder? How can you be mad at somebody's way of development that's different than yours? Someone from another country develops a little bit different from you. Is that why we should be mad at them?
Well, another point is that regardless of whether or not an individual has a disability, couples are going to have issues and arguments all the time.
About anything.
Right. So why would you blame any disagreements or arguments on someone's disability, something that they can't help?
It's called scapegoating, is what it is. A child is a child is a child. And whether they can drink their milk from the sippy cup or they try really hard to use a regular cup, each one will develop in his or her own time and their own way. You don't get mad at a child for their developmental steps or the side steps they take. You encourage them, you assist them. You try to help them to be as independent as they possibly can. And understanding that, you know, just because you did it one way doesn't mean that's the only way something can be done. People with autism, Stephen is a great example, so is my son Thomas. They have amazed me time and time again. Julia in Sesame Street. She amazed the other characters with the things that she could do and the things that she saw that they didn't see. Why would you be angry at her autism? And believe me, a child's not going to see it that you're mad at their autism. They're going to take it that you're angry with them because they're different. Is that the message we want to get out, Stephen?
No, not at all.
Didn't think so. So, Stephen, another thing that's in this message that's very disturbing to me, and unfortunately I heard it and was told several times the same message when my boys were coming up. That the parents of autistic children are bombarded with terrifying messages. Unfortunately, that is true. I do see today that things are much, much better. The parents of today that call me for advocacy or for scouting or whatever, they're not bringing the same amount of statements, but they're still hearing them. Oh, right. You didn't bond with your baby, or I shook you. Did you know that I shook you as a baby? I don't remember it either.
But I think the important thing to remember is while this message is harmful, people are becoming more aware that it's harmful. Like, I actually took a look at some of the more recent Sesame Street PSAs, and while I couldn't find the particular one they were talking about, I took a look at some of the recent ones where it had like Autism Speaks in it, and when you look through the comments area, they are not happy with this at all. Like, they already know that autism is not a disease, and they know how Autism Speaks is portraying autism. And even those in the comment areas that don't know what Autism Speaks is doing or why this is a bad thing, the other YouTube commentators are actually polite and professional about it. They actually explain to them why it's a bad thing. So I think it's important to understand that there's a big difference between now and 20 to 30 years ago. Like 20 to 30 years ago, we barely knew anything about autism, so you could easily say those things. Like, especially around like 1995, I think, when the Lancet Post did that article from Andrew Wakefield, I believe, where they were talking about how there was a link between MMR vaccines and autism. But nowadays we know that's not true, and we also know that autism is not the end of the world, and it's not this terrible thing or a disease that needs to be cured. So a lot more people are more aware, and they know what message is right and what message is wrong. Right.
And you know, for those of you that are viewing this, if any of you are associated with Sesame Street or associated with Autism Speaks, I'm willing to come and talk to you. Are you willing to come and talk to me?
Well, I'd like to interject on that. I feel like Sesame Street is an unfortunate recipient of the matter. I don't want to blame them because they've been doing good for around 50 years around my childhood. They're just doing what they can to impact children's lives. It's unfortunate that they chose Autism Speaks, but they might be in a situation where it might take some time to get out of, like maybe a contract, or maybe there's some other complication that we don't know about. So I don't want to hold Sesame Street accountable, but I do want to hold Autism Speaks accountable, because they need to understand that words have a lot of power, and if used wrong, and if it delivers a bad message, it can cause some negative impacts on people. Yes, people are more aware about autism, but that doesn't include everybody. And, you know, in the past, I actually considered working with or collaborating with Autism Speaks, but then I saw some things online like Autism Speaks doesn't speak for me, and I couldn't help but wonder, why is that? So I started asking around, checking on the news, and I gotta say, this event basically put the final nail in the coffin. I do not want to work with Autism Speaks whatsoever. We might be at events at the same time, but I'm not going to be working with them. Because in my mind, using a children's show to promote a message that is not only untrue, but also harmful, crosses every line imaginable.
Now, I agree with you in some of that.
Okay.
But I am always open to dialogue. And I feel that you're right. Sesame Street has done some wonderful things, which I've said in the beginning of this video. I truly believe in Sesame Street. I believe in what they do and what they teach and how they have helped us greatly. So I do believe in you, Sesame Street.
Yeah, and we both do.
And if you are open to dialogue, how about talking to somebody who is the daughter of someone with autism, the parent, the aunt, the advocate, the
Or
cub
me.
master. I've done all of that. This is the real deal right here. And he's not the only one. As far as Autism Speaks, yeah, I'd like to speak to you too. Because honestly, I think your hearts might be in the right place. I don't think the way you're putting your product out is. The bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, we need to remember something. Autism is here to stay. It is a developmental disability, or I should say disorder. And it is becoming more and more prominent. The numbers today, as opposed to when Stephen were born, is just scary. But we have to, as the quote-unquote neurotypicals, we have to take a look at this and understand this is the wave of the future. So do we close the door by making these type of remarks that continue to scare people? Or do we help develop the community so that wonderful talents, such as for Stephen, and you've seen Thomas, look around your neighborhood. You wouldn't be watching me today if it wasn't for somebody by the name of Bill Gates with his computers and several other prominent figures. Think of all those wonderful talents. Now think of Julia. What can she do?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So I hope that this blows over. I hope Sesame Street understands the dangerous waters they're going into. And as for Autism Speaks, they need to change the message. The message they're getting out there is a very old and ancient one, like a couple decades old.
That
and
needs
it's
to
not
go away.
Right, it needs to be updated. Like, there are several other autism organizations out there, like Pathfinders for Autism, and one I'm working with, Help Autism, and Autism Society of America. There are plenty of them out there, each of them promoting autism in a positive light, saying that there are some great talents and great gifts that come from autism. So Autism Speaks needs to change their message and get with the program, or they're going to be left behind. They may be one of the biggest autism organizations out there, maybe even one of the first, but that doesn't automatically make them the best. And the only reason I haven't done a video about Autism Speaks was because A, I don't want to be giving them any more time than I've given them already, and B, well, there are ways of kind of taking a YouTube channel down, so...
And so the fact of the matter is, what we're saying to everybody is, this is an example of history repeating itself. What we're asking you to do is do your research, talk to people, get into your community, find everyone that's involved, and start looking for the positive. These people are citizens of our community. They deserve everything that we can do to help, and please trust and believe, when you need them, they're here for us. And they bring very good talents and very good skills, and one day they'll be taking care of you.
Well, let's not go that far.
Please take care of them.
So anyway, so I think that's a good point to wrap up at. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I know this isn't really an easy subject to talk about, but it's something very serious enough that it needed to be addressed. So those who stuck around, thank you very much for watching. If you want to check out more stuff, be sure to subscribe to Tostemac to stay up to date on our latest videos. And
join the conversation.
Yeah, pretty much. So let us know in the comments down below, what do you think of this situation? Like, what's your connections with Sesame Street, and what are your thoughts on Autism Speaks? Let us know. We're open for conversation here. So, Mom, thanks for coming by to this video.
Thank you for inviting me, Stephen.
Yeah, no problem. And until the next video, see you later.
What? No jokes?
I didn't think it was that kind of video, Mom.
We've never done a serious video.
Well, first time for everything.
And we brought it to you.
Yes. Look, I'm kind of improvising here, okay? I didn't have anything set up. Get off my back.
No, that's back there. I love you.
Love you too.
And we love you. Bye-bye.